Hello and welcome from me, Philip Nothard and Curtis Hutchinson, to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast, brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group. Many thanks again for joining us in this ninth in a series of special interviews themed around sharing best practices as car retailers manage their way through COVID-19 crisis. Previous interviews have been with Sytner Group's Darren Edwards, Virtue Motors' Robert Forrester, the IMDA's Umesh Samani, Volvo UK's MD Christian Elverforce, and last week's chat with Indicator's Andy Shields. They're all still available to stream online at the motortraderadio.com site, Spotify and Apple and Google Podcasts.
Now, we're delighted to welcome our special guest today, an old friend of the show, David Bilsborough, who's the owner of Cheshire Cars based in Crewe. So welcome back to the podcast, David, and perhaps you could start by giving listeners a brief overview of your business.
Right. Well, guys, it's a pleasure to be on the podcast again with both of you. I hope you're keeping well. And yes, I'd be delighted, Curtis, to just give an overview. So I've started Cheshire Cars back in 1996, so almost 25 years ago, to supply and retail quality vehicles, which we've pretty much done in the 24 and a half years. And obviously, in that time, we've built up a reliable brand name and obviously being called Cheshire Cars, and being in Cheshire helps. So we have quite a lot of strength in the online presence of the business and the brand, and we're very active on obviously all the social channels. So it's a retail business with the service side as well. We do obviously service and MOT work for vehicles, both our own and our clients, and people that have met with me and know me. So we're very busy indeed.
So great to have you back, David, and thanks for coming back on. And yeah, I hope you're well and the family are well. I mean, really, now it feels like it's forever, but we are now in the 8th week of a lockdown, and you know, it seems that there's a lot going on, a lot of information coming out from the government on a regular basis that everybody's trying to digest and understand what it means for them, and particularly looking at it from a car retailer perspective, it's not as simple as that, because it means different things for different parts of the retailers. And you know, can you tell us how this has impacted you and your business on a day-to-day perspective?
Well, I think at first, before we had the announcement by the Prime Minister I think it was on the Monday, wasn't it, in March? Yeah. It was sort of business as normal right up until that point for Cheshire Cars. And a lot of my colleagues who I know in and around the Crewe and Stoke-on-Trent area were just sort of, you know, we did mention it, but it was all pretty much business as usual. But then I think as we approached, which was the Monday, we sort of thought, no, this is going to start to become a bit of an issue. And we actually lost a deal that we'd signed up the week before through the impending possible lockdown. The clients who purchased a car pulled out of the sale. So at that point then it really began to hit home that we may be in for quite a trying time. And I think initially it was an incredibly trying time. We watched the Google analytics falling away, you know, from some 70,000 interactions down to about 14,000. So there was a lot less traffic. And I think it's probably fair to say that pretty much everyone in the country was very, very nervous. Certainly in the first 3 weeks of the lockdown, very, very nervous, very unsure about what the future may hold for people. But I think also that, you know, to be fair to the current government, they have pulled out the stops. At least in my sort of view of it is that they've done and backed businesses very much and very well, and with a few tweaks we can probably mention later through different schemes. It's been quite a reassurance that they've backed the British business economy side of the country anyway. So we're very heartened by that, but it's been a challenge, obviously, as you can imagine. So Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a good word, a challenge, really.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be mentioning that word a few times. I can guarantee that, David.
Thought we might.
Yes. Now, everyone's talking about click and collect at the moment, but you've actually been successfully operating a click and collect service for several years now. Do you envisage independents migrating more of their business online as a result of the lockdown? And if so, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenges? There's that word again. What will be the biggest challenges facing them?
Well, you're quite right. We have sort of been early to the table, and we've gradually, I think, we've sort of added things as we've gone down the years. It's almost a decade now since the very first free delivery took place to Brighton, of all places. And, you know, I was quite unsure how much that would have a positive impact on my business, but it has had a massively positive impact in the last decade through deals that we just would not have done. We just would not have done them. They would not have happened. So I think on the challenge for retailers that maybe are just dipping the toes into it or haven't yet started, I think they really need to sort of analyse, they don't need to look at it so much as a cost basis to do that transportation or delivery, but really look at it that if they do it, that piece of stock will turn over sooner, the money's in the bank quicker, so they can reinvest the money again. So I think that's probably, it's a mindset, isn't it, really, of not just being negative with it, and I mean that respectfully, but to be more positive and embrace it. And I think those that embrace it will do very, very well from it. And those that don't embrace it could be in trouble, to be fair, because I think enough people now through the lockdown, and there's been enough media coverage of it, free delivery, not necessarily free, but delivery, that if you don't do it, you're only playing with the one football boot, so to speak. Yeah. You're not really, you haven't really got two boots, have you? So I think it's going to be an interesting time for some people. And I'm speaking to a few dealers who have asked me, what's it like? And do you get any trouble? Do you get any problems from it with distance selling? Because obviously that comes into it. But I've just sort of said, no, personally, no. But there is a system that you need to adapt into your business to ensure that you don't get the problems, that the cars leaves the premises in great condition. And I think, and again, I mean it respectfully, if people don't prepare the cars quite well enough, then there could be a few problems, yeah. But I think those that prep them properly and are upfront with the descriptions and offer, video as well to go with the potential free delivery. I think the video goes hand in hand with the free delivery. So there's a few items that they need to do. They need to adapt to do the videos and also customer reviews. People read the reviews and, obviously gain confidence or not from the reviews. So there's a lot to take in, but I'm sure that they, as motor traders do, we've risen to challenges in the past, and I'm sure more will rise to this new challenge as we go forward.
And just out of interest, David, what prompted you to launch that service? As you say, it's the best part of 10 years ago now.
Well, I thought about what actually happened, and it was a Mini Cooper S to a nice chap in Brighton, and he just said to me, Dave, would you deliver the car to us in Brighton? And I thought, well, it's a basic car, but this guy is obviously interested in buying the car and he wants to deliver it to Brighton. I'll do it. So that's what I did. I did it, and I've never looked back. So a few minutes ago, I mentioned about dealers thinking, what's the cost going to be? I can't afford a day out of the office or a day out of the garage. But we turned the car over within days. It was gone, money in the bank, and we reinvested the money into some of the stock. So I think there's a positive spin on it would be that you do your delivery, you get the money into your bank, you're then using that money again, you're reinvesting that money quicker, your turnovers quicker. If somebody can sit in their armchair with their iPad or the computer, laptop, and can see your stock and they can see that it's free delivery or delivery nationwide, there's every likelihood if everything else in your portfolio is correct, they'll make up the phone call to you, or they'll make the email to you, and you'll do business with them. So I think for me, it was a good experience, and one that I learned from immediately, and I adopted it literally into the business there and then. So for nearly 10 years, it's been free for me, delivery all around the country.
So you're really focusing on that point in time. You've got an inquiry, you can take an advantage from that inquiry and focus on that, rather than thinking, well, what may I miss by doing this?
Yes.
You're putting the focus on that asset that you've got and turn that into income.
Yes. And let's be honest. I mean, I could have some of the nicest cars. I think I've got the nicest cars in the country, obviously. But until somebody comes along and shows interest, and then ultimately is prepared to leave a deposit and wait for delivery, it's just that. It's just a nice piece of stock.
Yeah.
And obviously, we all need to make sure that we keep the turnover going. And especially in times like now, you need the turnover to invest again, don't you? And, you may invest in stock, you may invest it all in stock, you may invest some in new technologies and new laptops, cameras, videos, whatever. But, if you look at it and say, well, what is it going to cost me to deliver the car, then you're not looking at it, in my opinion, in the correct manner.
And as we're recording, your colleague is busily in the background there, prepping your cars to the best condition.
Yes, the usual detailed standard. Yes, probably. I'm sure. I do apologise.
They don't apologise. Business goes on.
Yes. So, obviously, everyone's got sort of ideas, and historically, I think we probably much would all agree that particularly used car dealers would only spend the preparation on a deposit or a confirmed sale. I think this is something that we may see change completely. So I think the preparation costs will rise for everyone. But I think in doing that, they should then begin to see a reduced time to sale.
Yeah.
So I think that's personally what I do. I prep everything. And today I've been to the workshop with an Audi. It's just come in yesterday. The noise you might be able to hear is a car that arrived in this morning from Click and Collect. But we do it systematically. So we go through the whole process: workshop parts, detailing, images, video. Yeah. So when that car's videoed, it can be delivered, collected that day. And we can almost deliver a car the same day if the timing was right. So, and confidently deliver it, because we underwrite with our own warranties. So if the car's out of manufacturer's warranty, then we'll actually underwrite the car ourselves. And that's a big draw for people when they ask you what warranty do you give, and you say, well, we're going to give you 3 months of our own warranty in addition to your statutory rights. And we actually talk about statutory rights, and we talk about the 14 days right to cancel. We don't hide from it. It's made clear from the start, and we embrace it. And I think that would be a word I would say to dealers. They need to embrace the changes that are now not coming. They've arrived. They're already here. You've got to embrace them. You must embrace them.
So thinking about obviously stock as there's a lot of talk around. We've had previous leaders, as we've mentioned earlier on the podcast, and lots of conversations taking place now as we come towards that showroom opening, hopefully on the 1st of June. But there's been a lot of talk around pent up demand, particularly in the used car market. We've seen the used car figures come out with the drop in March. That's probably very closely connected with the 23rd of March lockdown. But at the end, there's built up of end of contract cars waiting to be defleeted.
Yes.
We know from online classifieds that searches are now starting to rise. That sort of search is recovering, and we're bringing this word in again. But what are the challenges now that you feel that will be facing dealers to sort of fulfil this demand that we've been building throughout lockdown?
I think some of it will be down, Philip, to what inventory they were holding before lockdown. I think some dealers had a busy run and were looking to restock, and then lockdown happened and they didn't restock. They weren't able to restock. And there was a reluctance to restock as well, which is understandable, because nobody let's face it, on the 23rd of March, didn't really fully understand 3 weeks. Was it going to be 3 weeks? Was it going to be longer? As we know now, it's longer. So I think as we've gone through it, people have become more calmer, more sort of positive about it. So I think there will be people that are actively in the market. We're actively in the market for buying stock. And as we get nearer and nearer to potentially the June date that's been passed around at the moment, I think that demand and that desire to pick up with stock and the defleets, and I think one or two of the auctions are now coming back online as well, through online auctions, of course, at the beginning. So I think there will be quite a lot of activity, and I think I'm hopeful that we'll see, from the figures that I'm seeing and from the podcasts that I've listened to, and yours including, in previous weeks, it's quite a lot of positivity surrounding there will be a bounce back. And to have a bounce back successful, you need the stock. So I think that prices are pretty much, Cap HPI said that they would be holding the prices. There isn't really a market to down them more, to sort of reduce them more so than any other time of this, as last year, this time of the year, March, April, May. So I think if the dealers, the data coming from data suppliers are telling us that prices are firm, that retailers are not reducing by great amounts of money, which is good. So I think we've so far, we seem to have negotiated it fairly well, Philip, in my opinion. I think the demand will be there when we come back, when we open up properly. I think the demand will be there, and those that have got the capital and have managed the lockdown and sort of kept in touch with the clients through emails and social media will be the ones to benefit, because obviously that's what we've been doing. We've been keeping in touch with clients and regularly posting on social channels.
Now, following on and really staying on the subject of demand, I'd be interested to hear your views on this, David. We've got a possible scenario here where the new car market is going to take a long time to get restarted. We know that the factories are only just starting to reopen this month. So a lot of people who traditionally would be in the market for a new car, they may not want to wait 26 weeks or however long the extended wait is going to be. So do you expect to see them go from new cars into nearly new and used cars instead of waiting?
I think it much depends on the wait, the length of wait, potential wait. I think people may wait for 3 or 4 weeks for a vehicle. I mean, I certainly would personally, but I think if it's more than that, then there's every chance that person won't just walk away and come back. They'll go and look at a nearly new car. So I think the potential is that the 6 months old or under 12 months old vehicles will be high in demand, which is good. So I think it just depends on the length of time it takes to build and deliver, obviously, because they get built all around the world and they have to be transported in. Although, as you've probably seen as well, there does seem to be one or two areas of the country where there is seemingly some good stock of cars. Now, obviously, some of those will be sold already prior to the lockdown, but there could be, a little bit, I don't know percentage terms, but there could be some encouragement to the new car dealers there that they have got ready built stock that isn't sold. But I've not been in the new car market for a long, long time, so I don't quite know if they really are building to order. I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess following up on that, with talk of the government encouraging people to go back to work and not use public transport, do you think there's the possibility of new buyers actually coming into the used car market?
I think there's every chance. I think that's a very good point, and it's been made on several occasions, and I tend to go with that point that they're making, that there'll be some fresh faces in the used car market. So I absolutely do think that could be a bonus for the used car guys. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, you've touched on obviously about the values, and obviously the guides have taken a fairly pragmatic view of freezing the values, and we know in the recent days, not weeks really, that some of them have started activity again. Cap HPI being one of them, looking at sort of the 5-year-old plus vehicles initially because of the volumes and things like that. But on the back of this, And thinking of yourself here and independent dealers, and are you going to start to think about profile of vehicles that you may purchase? We've been on this trajectory of EV and alternative fuel. Is that something that delay slightly as an impact of COVID-19? And there's other talks around that, lower price vehicles and smaller vehicles. Are you considering all this in terms of your stock profile and what product you're going to look for? Are you just purely looking at what has got a profit opportunity for you?
I think this is so interesting because every one of us has different sort of views on this. But for me, I don't really see my stock profile changing very much at all, because I've had a few years obviously trying to find out what ideally I would like to, what would be best for my business. And for my business, it's best for the vehicle that's between 1 and 4 years of age, with average to low mileage. Because obviously doing a lot of distance selling of cars, and obviously I want to try and protect the customer, the client who buys the car, and the business. And so my interpretation is to buy the lowest mileage, the newest car with the most specification. And I'm not sort of saying that I will only buy Mercedes, Audi, BMW, but they tend to be a profile of car that historically offers the customer the desirability factor from a client's point of view is very high. So they want to own a BMW model as opposed to maybe a top of the range Ford model or a Vauxhall model. That obviously, so my profile will be pretty much between 1 and 4 years of age, with low mileage and with full service history. And I think that's something that gives me no problems whatsoever. I can't remember the last time. I don't want to say this on the air, but the last time we had a major issue, it must.
You said it.
I know. Did I say that? Did I really say that? Oh no. So I think that some people will say, some people that are in the people that are in the sub £5,000 market are probably going to do really well. They're probably going to be the market that's going to do really well because of these that Curtis has just mentioned about people that weren't in the market, that were getting a train to work or some other form of transport, maybe sharing a car with somebody. They want to feel safe, and they'll probably go and buy a £2,000 or £3,000 car to drive to work on their own and come back on their own.
I was going to ask you that because it's whether that is a short to medium term behavioural change or a long-term behavioural change is the question.
Yeah, it is a question. And I think Philip, what they'll do potentially is they'll spend £2,000 or £3,000 and just test the water themselves, because they won't really know themselves, will they?
Yeah.
I don't think. I think so. It could be something for 6 or 12 months. I mean, interestingly, we've had a few inquiries of late where people have only bought this year. Already, they're looking to trade out of a used car they bought this year for a vehicle that we have here. I've not had that before, so I don't know whether that's something that I should consider. But I think we do try and buy the unique cars, the cars with different specification, limited editions, and obviously those the dealers that are doing well in the £10,000 to £25,000 sector are the ones that are finding those cars. Or if you don't find them, enhancing them to bring them up to a sort of level where they are that little bit different. So I think everyone's got something to be cheerful about. So hopefully that will be the case.
And finally, David, a lot of listeners will know you through your involvement with the IMDA, because you're a co-founder and you're currently the treasurer. Can you just tell us what work the association has been doing to help dealers through this period? And I guess especially in relation to managing things like social distancing and hygiene standards when showrooms start to reopen.
Yep, so you're quite right. I'm one of the founder members in 2017.
Long time.
Yeah.
I remember it well.
Yes, I think, Curtis, you were very, very supportive of that, so thank you for that. And in the early days, thank you very much. But that's, of course, the Independent Motor Dealers Association, if I can get the full plug in. And thank you. And And we've done a phenomenal amount of work. It's been really pleasing to see all sides of the industry coming together and sharing best practice, and we've achieved such a great many things. But one of the two of the things that we have, and you've mentioned it in the sort of social distancing and hygiene of showrooms, etc. We've come up with a sort of a raft of measures which dealers can download the labels and the distancing sticky labels, and you can print them off and you can stick them in the windows, on desks, around the showroom, in the workshop, and just make sure staff as well, are adhering to the 2-meter distancing rules, and even down to the fact of which way should they go around the showroom. The arrows are one-way systems. And then we've produced quite a lot of data around, good practice, resilience, being prepared. And of course, we had such a great response from the campaign on furlough pay as well. So I think that raised about 30,000 people signatures on it. So which whether it did or didn't, it must have had some impact to the government to include the commission. So for something that we do as we are voluntary in doing it. It's a proud moment for us, and we're grateful for the feedback and support from yourselves and Philip. And other people around us as well. We've had some great working togetherness from other associations, and I know that everyone's done well. So it's not just the IMDA; they've all pulled together for their sectors, and we should all be very immensely proud of, obviously running businesses in our case and doing this as well, because we do all run businesses, So it's been manic, absolutely manic.
It certainly has. Well, I mean, David, it just leaves me to say it's been an absolute pleasure having you back on again. We need to not leave it as long the next time, and get you guys back on again just once we start to get to the new norm, as people are tagging it now. Yes. But what that will look like, I think for you, it is just normal, right? In a way, apart from a little bit of controls around social distancing and hygiene, as you've said. I think you're doing a fantastic job. So, I mean, many thanks for sharing your thoughts around and experiences through lockdown these past 8 weeks. It's like I say, it seems a lifetime ago now, doesn't it?
I know. I think there's a few more months ahead of us, but we should all be proud that we've, as a nation and a country, we have pulled together. I think there's been some fantastic stories, and really, I think it's tonight, isn't it? Is it on Thursday night that they have the clap for the NHS? So that will be interesting as well. That's going on, isn't it? So, yeah, good. And thanks, Curtis, for allowing me to share this with you two guys.
No, it's great. Yeah. All the best for it. Obviously, get open again, and as dealers, both sort of independent and others, get what they call retail ready.
Retail ready, indeed.
Hashtag
retail ready, and what's the other one? It's hashtag stay alert, wasn't it?
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, look, many thanks, David, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, as Philip said. So do come back soon. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. You've been listening to this special Motor Trade Radio podcast, brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group. Please like and share on social media, as it's important during these times for the dealer community to work together and share experiences and best practices. Many thanks to you for listening and supporting the podcast. Philip and I will be back with the industry headlines on Saturday, but do watch out for more special podcast interviews as we work through this crisis. Until then, do stay safe and stay well.